Well, hello, hello. Fancy seeing you here. Welcome back to Enigmatic. It's been a busy week. I was thinking the entire week about what I wanted to speak on. To a certain degree, I really don't know still. As I was setting up to record this video, the idea of being in the process kind of came to mind. So I'd like to share some of my thoughts about that because it's something that I'm currently exploring. There's a kind of a precedent to look towards the end goal with a lot of things that we do, especially in the hustle culture that we find ourselves in right now. And we forget about the beauty of the process and the understanding therein that we derive from moving towards a goal. And so, that being said, I was kind of ruminating for a while on what I wanted to speak on. I could talk about the gym. I have this idea for a video of saying why I think that most of fitness is mental. I could have also spoke about psychedelics. I did just finish having a Changa journey for my meditation, so that's something freshly in my mind. I also thought that I could start sharing things about my own form of skepticism, that is philosophical skepticism, not just kind of like conspiracy theories and things like that. It's not really what I'm into at all. But epistemology is something I'm very much into. But I decided to listen to my previous video, and we can learn from ourselves by revisiting old versions of ourselves, because the person who recorded that video and myself, we're not the same. I've changed since that time. We change from moment to moment. And so what we have in common, that is our strongest link, is the continuity between us. And sometimes I think that's what the self really comes down to, is a continuity, not a static thing, but a continuity of a thing. And that kind of understanding takes, process as well. It's not something that we just implicitly understand at any time. And I think that can be seen based on the plethora of ideas and paradigms and frameworks that we use to understand ourselves and understand the world. And for me personally, I tend to look at these things as just that, paradigms and frameworks. I don't necessarily look at them as facts of the matter. And I think that facts are very, very sticky. Then again, I might have, read Wittgenstein a few too many times. But in my mind, a fact is only a fact in a paradigm that it is derived in. So it's a scientific fact that gravity pulls things towards the center of a physical body, right? But what I'm really getting at here by just kind of going off on all these random thoughts is that this is part of my process. And we have to identify that within ourselves. What is our process? Because we have a lot of examples of different processes of people out in the world. There's plenty of other YouTubers that I can look at and see how they're doing things. But if I want to be true and authentic to myself, I feel that I should navigate this on my own. And yeah, there's definitely things that I can learn from others, but when it comes to actually crafting how this is going to be done, it's my craft. I'm not trying to go out of my way to have too much appeal. And I think that is something that makes my approach a little bit different. And so really I have to be with myself and what I would like to get out of this and what I would like to deliver to you. And so that's part of that, again, process. And so with that being said, there's so many subtle things to take into account. How I speak, how I feel. Sometimes I am feeling some anxiety while I do this, because naturally we are concerned as creatures about how it may be received, right? Not necessarily because we actually care what somebody thinks and thinks that what they think is going to be meaningful, impactful, factual, anything like that. At least not for me. For me, it's more of what do I have to deal with. Another thing for me too is I'm very, very considerate. I know that I could be wrong and that there's things that I could be missing in any given context. And so I guess another thing I should add to that is that I'm a highly sensitive person. So it's a genetic trait called sensory processing sensitivity. So my nervous system just simply picks up a lot more information, right? So there's more processing that goes on for data that is received. And so I have to do this and craft this in a way that is tailored for me, right? And so I just find this very interesting because I never really thought that I would do something like this. But based on how I see myself as it is and what other people have said about me, sometimes when I share my reflections, even if they're relegated specifically to me, they end up benefiting others. And that is something that I would really like to get out of this, aside from just doing more for myself and having projects and feeling a little bit more fulfilled. I would like to help others in a beneficial way. One thing that most people that know me will be able to tell you, and that I'll also tell you that I'm aware of about myself, is that I'm very, very caring. And I care deeply about how I might impact people, which is funny because there's a balance that needs to be drawn and upkept in that, because I can only control so much, right? And when I say control so much, I can really only control myself, and we don't even have 100% control of ourselves. So there's a certain point at which I might affect people in a way that I don't mean to, and I really just have to shrug it off. Especially if, in reflection, I see that I did the best that I could. Um, so yeah, I won't lie, I blanked out for a minute, and so as that kind of happened, I felt some anxiety because I was kind of thinking in my mind, oh, this needs to keep going. But instead, I just kind of came into my body and I noticed, where is this anxiety being felt? And then I told you about it. So, yeah, I think that this right now is a great example of visualizing and experiencing a process. Because I'll keep coming back to it until I, find my groove, but I don't know what I'm doing. And a lot of times when we feel that we don't know what we're doing, we're uncomfortable. So it's kind of like I said in the last video about being with our anger. It doesn't have to control you. And what I mean by that is that you can feel it and you can have it, and it doesn't have to dictate your actions. You don't have to cast any judgments that are good or bad about it. And some of that comes down to what our framing of these emotions and sensations are, with the attached connotations and associations. So with my discomfort, I'm just being with it and still talking to you. And if I need to pause, I just pause. We we're creatures that, and for societal reasons and survival reasons, we are suggestible. And the power of suggestion is something that I try to be very aware of. I think it's why when there's a fad going on, say, Game of Thrones or something like that, I'll wait until it's all over and it's died down before I get into it, so that I know what I really, really think about it. Because I remember probably about a decade ago, I was by myself and I chose to turn on some music, and it was Red Hot Chili Peppers. And as I was listening to it, I asked myself, why am I listening to this right now? And upon further reflection, I was able to come to the conclusion, I've never liked Red Hot Chili Peppers. And that's not to say that I think they're a bad band or anything like that. They just don't do it for me, and they never really have. So why did I listen to them then? Why did I have them on my iPod at that time to listen to them? And it's because I gave in to the power of suggestion from friend groups from, say, high school, when I was introduced to them. And, it's not that it's a bad thing or a good thing, but it's just something to notice and be self-aware of. And so that being said, and going back to, bigger examples, is that, just because society is into something doesn't mean that it's going to be fitting for me. And so I choose to kind of just go my own route. And one thing that means, and another thing that we're very susceptible to, is the fear of missing out, FOMO. Based on my own philosophical and spiritual practice, I practice a bit of non-attachment. Um, and I also have the realization that I'll always miss out on something. We all will. there's 8 billion people on this planet. There's a whole lot going on. There's no way we can keep up with everything. And it seems that things just seem to be accelerating as well, which is also very interesting. So, I can't lie, I'm really enjoying this right now because this ended up just being a stream of thought. And stream of thought is a process, and that's something I want to wrap this back into. So, yeah, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed, please give me a like, give me a subscribe. I appreciate it. I appreciate all the support. Be good to you, be good to others. Much love.